welcome to this episode of Front Runner 2020. I'm Ron Turner. Our next question comes from Charlie.
My question, I guess, falls in the marketing communications area, and it has to do with managing online identities. And I was wondering if you had any particular references or books or methodologies that you follow, because I've been on the net since about 1980, and I accidentally have like 50 different identities because they're different email addresses. And some of them are very, very distinct. You can search for one name and it'll show up all kinds of technical stuff. You'll show up another one and it'll show up on water conservation and so forth. And they're actually distinct identities. And I haven't deliberately separated them, but now I'm gotten to the point where I do, where I actually create identities that are just for a particular purpose, and I lock all my, that's what I mean by managing. Have you delved into this kind of thing in terms of communication and marketing in this context?
Well, I'll start by saying that I'm the first to note that communications and marketing is not my #1 area of expertise.
Okay.
But a couple of things I would note here. The first is that I think the general trend is going to be that while it's convenient to keep sort of separate, identities and whatnot as you're moving through your online world, the further apart those identities are from you, or the more segmented they seem from you as an authentic full person, then the more trouble you would end up in later on. So, the exercise I'd be thinking about now is sort of how do you reconcile those different identities into some sort of more cohesive point about you, so full you package. And I think the ones that maybe you are that you want to let go of, from something you said back in 1991 or whatever. I find a way to minimize those definitely, but you need to be developing a strong, unified online presence for you now. And if there's a way to start tying some of these things together, great. And if not, that's the kind of stuff that really could come back and bite you. Maybe outside of a couple of really sort of Crane-specific, like academic details in a different setting.
Sure. Well, actually, when I segment, it really is segmented by topic. It's consistent, I think, in the different silos. But as I say, using the example of like water conservation and, I don't know, computer programming, they're totally different areas. I approach them the same way, and if you looked at my writing style in both of the identities, you'd find them to be similar. So it's not a question of, splitting the way I do things or saying, oh, I'm not proud of this or I'm proud of this type of thing. It's more of a subject type of thing.
Oh.
But it also kind of is interesting because if you put it all in one basket, sometimes people get confused. If you have particular identities that are like, there might be an identity on, I don't know, GLBT is one of my favorite, or one of my strong issues. I have one identity that I use for that interaction. And people know about it. I'm not saying it's not there. It's just that that's what I use primarily for my interactions in that area versus my interactions in, say, I don't know, agriculture or something.
Oh, sure.
And I keep them separate, but it's a subject difference, not a difference in attitude or wanting to hide anything. Is what I'm saying.
Okay. That makes a little more sense.
That's what I mean by manage. Go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say, you've been on the line for a long time, so the fact that you have a ton of different handles, screen names or whatever, like, totally get that. And I think that's something that can be explained. But I would say that potentially you may be doing people a disservice by not letting them see the complexity of you. And so, for better or for worse, the more of a full picture you can give people about you, then the less set up for disappointment you are along the way. And so, let people know that you're, you do a lot of work on LGBT rights and you're awesome about water conservation, plus you're a programming geek. Like, that's great. And let people find the pieces about you that they want to identify with. And by making them informed about some of the other pieces, it doesn't surprise them later. That's how you avoid the problem.
That's a good point. That's a good point. As I say, I'm not deliberately hiding particularly. It's just sort of worked out that way. But anyway, thank you for your thoughts on that. That's good.
I like that, John, because I think that is a good way to bring it down. Is that, you know, people like this authenticity in general, but especially online. That's emerging more and more as something, as a way to resonate with people, and you know that people detect fakes or impartials. My other thought about that is that in episode 1 with Josh, we did talk about the distinction between that are sometimes a result of platform architecture. That is, in Facebook, you do want to have a separate fan page for your political career separate from your personal page, and not to assume that what you say personally isn't visible to anyone. You have to work on that assumption. But the other fan page that you create then is the place where you cultivate this authentic brand that you want to build.
Well, thanks. I'll start by saying, again, thank you to Ron for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. I want to make sure I'm available to all of y'all, so feel free to call, email, Facebook, LinkedIn me, whatever you want to do. I'm happy to provide feedback or be as a resource for things you need as you're thinking about running for office or doing that work with your campaigns. And, I just want to say, doing the work now, sometimes it's, I was the first one at one point to be saying, this is ridiculous, it's a waste of time. But I'll tell you what, spending a little time now and thinking about where you want to go as you really helps in both crystallizing how you want to lead your life for the next 20, 30, 40 years, assuming a big chunk of that's going to be in the public eye, but leading it in a way that's really authentically you, and you feel great and grounded as you're moving forward. So, I'd invite you to do the homework, to spend the next bit of time just being a little reflective about how you're preparing you, to strategic plans for you, so you're running as smoothly and efficiently as possible, but then getting the most out of life in what you're trying to lead. So, best of luck to you, and thank you so much for having me.
John, it was a great presentation. Thank you very much for being here. If you would please step to my contact information, let me run through the way that people can keep in touch with FrontRunner 2020. I really want this to be a community where people participate, and that is why the blog is on frontrunner2020.com. There's a Facebook page with comments, the YouTube channel, FrontRunner 2020 TV, Twitter at FrontRunner 2020. The podcast audio is available in iTunes, and Tuesday morning, all of the recordings of the prior week's program are made available, and a full transcript is on the website, frontrunner2020.com. So I urge everyone to go there and comment and participate. Again, thank you, John. Thank you, audience. Everyone have a good evening.